So, hello, Marissa. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Harry.
Yeah, no problem at all. No worries. So what did you say it was 8 o'clock? Sorry, over there where you are now.
Yeah, it's 8:08.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's 4 away in the afternoon here, so it's the day is done pretty much. I'm ready for some food and bed soon. It's still a
I
bit.
hear you.
But yeah, brilliant. Thank you for joining me. So could you, Marissa, just tell the audience, a bit about yourself, a bit about what you do, how you ended, how you got to where you are, and that sort of thing.
Sure. So I'm a teacher and I've been a teacher for about 13 years.
Wow, right.
I have um, a multiple subjects credential. So here in the United States, a multiple subject credential allows us to teach elementary school.
Oh, I see. Okay,
So
brilliant.
yeah,
Yeah.
so K through 8, and then I have a single, well, K through 6 probably, but I also can teach high school, and I have a single subject credential for French, and
Oh,
that's where
wow.
most of my experience is. Yeah. So for the last 13 years, I've been teaching high school French.
Wow.
And I think during the pandemic, I really enjoyed learning online, and I saw that in teaching online, and I saw
Mhm.
that there was definitely something special and unique about it that I could see in the future be a part of education and what we offer. So I decided to get my master's in e-learning
Wow.
during the pandemic. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun and really interesting, and it kind of just sparked my interest. And so then, gosh, with all the different changes in technology in education within like the last 3 or 4 years, I realized very quickly that my skills, in a sense, were outpacing what I'm doing in the classroom,
Okay.
and my desire to continue exploring that realm was something that I wanted to kind of seek and see what I can do with it. And so I decided to leave the classroom officially, which was a really tough decision,
Wow.
but
Yeah, I
I
bet. I bet
left.
after that, it's quite a long time to, move away from it. I imagine that was a big sort of
It
everything
was,
shock for you.
it's one of those things. You're leaving the security of a educational job like that,
Yeah, absolutely.
certainly. Um, but especially with AI coming in, I saw it as something that will definitely impact education.
Hmm.
And we are at this point in education where so many teachers are already struggling just to do their daily activities.
Yeah.
And um, and I understand that because I just left the classroom. So
Hmm.
I kind of have that perspective of what is expected of us on top of everything else that's going on, and then bring in something like AI. Gosh, it's yet another thing, another change, another thing to add to our plates. And even though really it could help us, right?
Yeah.
um so I decided, when I left the classroom, I decided I was going to help other teachers kind of navigate that world from a teacher's perspective. And I and
Brilliant.
I
Yeah.
joke, I built Teaching with Machines is the name of my little community organization. And really it's about having teachers learn how to leverage and play with AI
Hmm.
for themselves, but also eventually for their students.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I find myself now. It's been a lot of fun. I do webinars and I do play sessions where we just hop on and explore the AI together. And
Fantastic.
yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it's just to pick up on a couple of things. I'm sure I won't on absolutely everything, but it's good that you almost found a silver lining of such a quite a, without sounding so dramatic, such a dark time in our in
Yeah.
well, modern history. It seems a lot of people, came out of it a lot worse, whereas you seem to have flipped it on its head, especially in regards to the teaching and education for format, because that completely changed, didn't it? That's something that a lot of people have had to
Yeah.
adapt to by Teams and Zoom and things like that. So,
Yes.
which are brilliant platforms.
Mhm.
And especially with the AI coming in. Do you think that the pandemic maybe almost sped up the AI world and digital education world a little bit more?
You know, the what is that called? There's a saying that, basically innovation happens when we're at ultimate desperation.
Yes, yeah,
And
yeah, I'm with you.
I,
Yeah.
I, I think that's really why we are seeing the speed of which it is kind of being adopted.
Hmm.
But the pandemic, I think, for a lot of different things, kind of exposed the cracks that already existed.
Yeah.
And I think that is what we're seeing, the repercussions. I mean, there's a whole new set of repercussions right now with education, just like 3 years down the line. Seventh graders are not reading at, reading levels of a seventh grader. So
Yeah.
we're seeing that. But then on top of that, the pre-existing cracks that were already existing are also being even, like
Yeah.
in California, we have earthquakes, right? And it's like there's a crack in the foundation, and you better take care of it then and now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll end up bringing down the house. And of course, that's a little dramatic, but
Yeah.
it's the same idea. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, of course. No, that's very so in your day-to-day life, are you constantly working with AI and AI platforms? And if so, which ones, just out of curiosity?
So, yes, I try to, we go through this thing where we learn and explore, but yet we also forget that it exists.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I'll give you an example. Like, you sit down and you start doing something that you've always done, but then you realize, oh, wait a minute, I could be using AI for this, right? And so we're
Yeah.
kind of going into this thing where it's like, oh, maybe I should first try it with AI and then
Hmm.
see if it just makes my life a little bit easier. Um, as far as different things that I'm using right now, I'm really, really focused on using the large language models in their I guess, like, pure form, right? So
Okay.
like and of course, I have to preface this, like, I'm not an expert in AI. I am
No.
literally just a teacher
Yeah.
who enjoys it, wants to help others.
Yeah.
So I know I'm oversimplifying a lot of things.
No,
But
absolutely. Listen, I'm the first to also we're in the same
yeah.
boat there.
And I
You know,
will never say I'm an expert because
yeah.
I'm not. I'm simply not. But I will say, so right now I'm focusing on, ChatGPT.
Hmm.
I play around with Bing quite a bit.
Yes.
I still have more. I need to have more exposure to the other ones a little bit more. But I am also quite busy, so it's kind of one of those things where it's like you're trying to balance everything.
Hmm.
Um, I do know about the tools that are out there, kind of for teachers, like it's site specific. Like your Magic
Yes.
School AI, your
Yeah.
Diffit, your Twee, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think what a lot of teachers, I guess, I don't want to say sound bleak, but it reminds me of, and I've said this in a couple of my LinkedIn posts, like, I kind of view the AI educational space, and probably just AI in general, as somewhat of a bubble. In
Hmm.
that right now we're all flooding to the market, we're all creating, and we're going to see tons more of these things pop up. And eventually it will get to the point where, only the few remaining will stand out, and
Yeah.
because they really address pain points, right?
Hmm.
And they do it well. But I also see, like, these tools right now that are built on top of Chat GPT,
Yeah.
like Magic School or Twee or whatever you want to call it. And I shouldn't. I'm assuming that's an assumption there. I'm assuming Twee is built on top of
Yeah.
Chat GPT.
You
I
can. I
probably
feel
should.
like you can sort of feel it a lot with them, whether using the API of OpenAI, and it's there are. I mean, usually because it's very very quick and also quite efficient. But there's yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like some of them have got a bit of a feel to them. Again, oversimplifying that, I know, and it's
Yeah, exactly. But I think what I'm finding, and kind of like many things in education, eventually the tools that we love, the things that we love, are going to require some kind of subscription.
yeah,
And as teachers, of course, we don't really necessarily have the money out of pocket to pay for those things.
hmm,
And so right now, I believe ChatGPT in its 3.0 version or
yeah,
3.5 version is free, and it probably will be kind of like a Google, like something that will remain free. If you want something more, you go to 4 or
hmm,
whatever it is. But if you take the time and slow down and really learn how to prompt and
Hmm.
how to play around and find what works for you, you will find that you can do the same things that many of those sites offer.
Yeah.
And I kind of worry that teachers will flock and then find themselves saying, I can't afford it once the subscription hits. But then they are so reliant on it and want it and desire it. It's like, hey, there's already a tool available to you. It just
Hmm.
takes a little bit of time to tweak it and learn how to use it.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
absolutely. It's very important. It's like you say, if you give a bit of time towards it. I mean, that's again oversimplifying it, and I know I am here, and I apologize to anybody who's gonna find this vexing, but it's that's what they are. Those models are just trained, aren't they? They are just trained with lots and lots of prompts to sort of direct it and push its power, if you like. But no, that's very interesting. So ChatGPT is sort of your go-to, is it, of
at the
things to
at the moment, that's the one thing that I have the
yeah.
most exposure to.
Yeah.
I feel most comfortable with it. Um, but I do constantly, try to play with different things and
Hmm.
share what I learn. But, like I said, I like to take time and build a foundation of learning how to do like one thing and learn how to do it well enough.
Hmm.
And that's kind of why I focus a little bit on ChatGPT. In my community, I really try to help teachers kind of learn how to use it for themselves. And
Yeah.
then also kind of that, so task reduction and everything is wonderful, but really we need to start getting creative with it.
Yeah.
And you have far much more control in using the LLMs directly, um, than you would like using those like third party
The
sites.
third parties, yeah.
So I think teachers are really going to start recognizing it as a creative enhancing tool for
Hmm.
their own craft. And eventually, once we kind of figure out what is safe for students, I think we're going to have to start teaching those AI literacy skills to our students and incorporating it into our classes. So I'm right there with them in a sense, and I'm kind of like maybe 1 foot ahead of the rest of the teachers, but at the
Hmm.
same time, I'm not that far advanced. So,
Yeah.
you know,
It,
I just want them to know that there's one of their own that they can turn to that I
it,
can say, okay,
no, I think that's what
this is
people
what you
need.
really need to know.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that is definitely what a lot of people need, a lot of teachers need. It's quite. I imagine it's a very daunting thing to see something that has got so much hype around it and so much. It's getting a lot of traction very very quickly, and obviously the questions that are being thrown around as well. Is it gonna take our jobs? And you've got Elon Musk sat
Yes.
there talking about I mean, he was over in London over the last couple of weeks, and I don't know if you know about this or any of the listeners know about this, a conference with our Prime Minister, and he said in that he believes that no jobs whatsoever will be necessary or will be needed to be they'll all be automated, which is such a massive closing statement from such quite a big revered powerhouse of a person. And I think that's
Yeah.
you've got things like that getting thrown around. It must be a very very daunting thing, especially when people have given their all of their livelihood to something like teaching, which is very admirable, but it must be quite scary. What is just going on to that? Do you what are your views on it sort of taking the jobs and things like that? Do you think it will, or do you think it'll change?
Well, I guess I'm a little bit myopic right here because I really think of like teachers' jobs. I mean, I'll be honest, I guess it's like I don't have the capacity to kind of continue taking that on like from a bigger scope.
Yeah, of course.
Like it's a lot that weighs on your shoulders. And so
Yeah.
when I think of teachers and getting AI to take over teachers' role, that's a little bit more, it's still a tougher subject to shoulder, but at least I can kind of wrap my head around it.
Yeah, of
And
course. When you start thinking about it on a
so,
global scale with every job in
oh
the
my
world
gosh,
and every job that will be,
panic attacks every day. Like,
yeah,
no,
it's
no,
not
no,
what it's
no.
not.
Like
Yeah, you can't bear thinking
this is
about it.
hard
Yeah,
enough as it is. And
absolutely.
so
I agree.
when I think of education though, like, AI is great and it's very helpful, but there are things that AI at least as we know it now,
Mhm.
just cannot pick up on the nuances. When you have a student sitting in front of you, you can tell if they're having a bad day. You can tell if they're even open to learning.
Yeah.
And those little nuances, I think, are uniquely human.
Mhm.
And when you talk about personalizing education, it's really, and it wasn't me that said this. Ephraim Lerner, I don't know if you follow him on LinkedIn,
No.
and Justin, he's gonna kill me for butchering his name, but it's like Jamirshi. And both of those guys kind of had this idea that, like, you know, instead of calling it personalized education, it's really personal education.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a marriage between using the technology
Mhm.
to personalize, but requiring the teacher to make it personal.
Okay.
And both
Yeah.
of those components together makes for a great education for a student. And because while the data can tell us that, little Bobby needs to work on math skills,
Mhm.
it really doesn't tell us much about how we need to approach what works best for him, what his
Yeah.
interests are,
Mhm.
what motivates him intrinsically. All of those things teachers do within split seconds and trying to understand
Yeah.
how to best um, disseminate information. And
Mhm.
so there will be, now we can have a tool that can allow us to quickly personalize,
Yeah.
the educational piece, the curriculum, but that human part is always going to be needed, always,
Mhm.
because you're dealing with other humans in a sense, right? So,
Yeah.
and their education. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, obviously it's difficult to say how things are going to look in 5 to 10 years. I imagine it will be very, very, I imagine the landscape of everything's going to be very different in 5 to 10 years. Things seems to be changing again, not to
100%.
stress you out on a scale of everyone and everything.
Look, I'm here for the ride. All I
Yeah,
know is that there needs to be change.
yes,
And if we can
absolutely.
hop in right now
Hmm.
and try to somewhat take the wheel of that change,
Yeah,
that is going to be our best bet, because just letting it go and just seeing what happens is going to be dangerous. And I
yeah.
think everybody in every job sector feels the same way. But if we can kind of harness it and try to hold on to it as much as possible and control it as
Mhm.
much as possible into the right direction, I think that's where we're going to possibly be on the brink of something amazing for humanity, amazing for education.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely, and a positive attitude is, it never goes amiss. It's definitely, and I agree, wholeheartedly. Also, a lot of I speak to a lot of teachers on the podcast quite frequently, and they, quite a few of them fully believe that the education sector, on a global scale, needs to change. I think it's that sort of age old thing of the classroom is still got the layout that it did 150 years ago, and it's not
Yeah.
that nothing else is the same, so why should that be the same? And I think that's I'm not a teacher, so I can never I'm not going to put words in teachers' mouths by any means,
Yeah.
but
But
it's
I will say there was one quote from Chris Deed. He's a professor at Harvard University, and I was
mm,
listening to speak about AI, and I had this like light bulb moment because, very much so, I'm in the same camp. Like, something needs to change. We need to
mm,
change it. Here's this potential tool that we can use to change it. Um, and he very bleakly said, his greatest fear with AI and education is that it will become the duct tape that holds together an industrial era educational system. And
okay.
it's a crumbling system. And
Mm,
so I kind of agree with that. Like, I am worried that AI will kind of just be this duct tape to kind of fill those foundational cracks
right,
versus
okay, I see what you mean.
really, really focusing on how to fix it. And if that
Right.
might mean, and this is going to sound radical, but if that might just mean rebuilding.
Yeah.
And I think I think that's where we're at right now. I'm for taking the time to really look at and explore how we can rebuild it.
Hmm.
And because I think I think it's tricky. It's a
Yeah.
very tricky situation right now in education.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. The you know I mean the education system before AI. I mean, obviously AI has always been there. People think it hasn't, but it always has been quite. It's existed for quite a while. But since the before this wave of large language models and Chat GPT in general, before that came around, the education system was already having its moments. I think, especially due to the pandemic. So it's interesting to see how this is kind of, I don't want to say ruptured because I think that's a bit of a bit of a negative word, but shifted the way it looks. I mean, I what my sort of personal opinion. I feel that if it can, even at a very very simplistic level, if they if schools can integrate it into the way that they work, and teachers can integrate it into the way that they work, and they can allow it to automate so many of those admin tasks, then it will also free up so much stress and so much time that they are giving to things that they don't need to give to in those admin tasks, which will then directly benefit the way that they teach, and they'll be happier and less stressed on a
And the
daily
students,
basis, and
right?
the
And the
pupils, yeah, and they'll
students
have a
will,
better
yeah.
response because the teachers will be in a better mood, and it's got so much of a butterfly effect, I feel. And but again, that's starting to get those funny things
Well,
to
it's
think about.
well, and I think that's where the duct tape is the worry. When I hear those words that Chris said,
Mm,
for me it was like, is this so let's say that admin, parents, just all stakeholders see
mm,
that now teachers can do these administrative tasks quickly.
mhm.
What else can we then put in their place of that time?
Okay, right.
And so that's where it's like, well, hold on, let's use that time towards actually putting it towards our students,
Yeah, yeah.
and
That I understood that. That's a very good point. That's it's a
yeah,
very
our
very
plate is
important.
already over full, right?
Yeah.
And then adding, saying, okay, well, now that you can do this XYZ efficiently and quickly, and we
Mhm.
bought whatever program to help you do that,
Yeah.
you know, let's just add this also.
Yeah,
And
gives you
again,
more time to do this. Your classes are getting
yeah,
bigger. The
exactly.
days
And
are
it's
getting
like, no, no,
longer
no.
now.
I need to put it towards my students because now I have the time to create engaging lessons,
Mhm. Yeah.
especially for these new teachers that are coming up.
Yes.
So you have people like myself, right, who
Mhm.
is just like, I am beyond burnt out and I'm done. And I would say that teachers, for the most part, and I'm not speaking for everybody who left the profession, but most of them really enjoyed the actual profession, the
Mhm.
actual art of teaching,
Yeah.
the interaction with students. Yes, there's, parents and students and, maybe admin that kind of,
Mhm.
you know, bothered us or whatever kind of added to the problems. But the actual art of teaching is incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
And if we had more time to create moments like that, those incredible teaching moments with our students and the
Mhm.
interactions and the relationships, then I think not only as teachers will feel less burnout, but they will also feel that rewarding feeling that you get from teaching far more often, and the students will end up benefiting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and also just like current curriculum, anything that is printed in a textbook is already outdated.
Yeah.
Now, I I I taught French. So, I mean, the French language really hasn't changed, at least
No.
curriculum wise, since the 1600s or whatever it was. Um, but I could do things now with AI to make it much more relevant and
Yeah.
meaningful for students.
Absolutely.
And versus the textbook who has the vocabulary still teaching students what a CD-ROM is, you
Yeah,
know?
right. Okay, yeah. Well, it's not engaging, especially when they don't know what it is. If it's if they
No,
if they can feel, if they can, I know it's quite literally, but if they can see that textbook is old and it's been used by hundreds and hundreds of pupils over a couple of decades, it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel like it belongs to them almost, does it? I suppose that having something
right.
is very, very relevant, on whether it's, in a digital format or anything like that. and it can be very, like you say, very engaging, very modern. I think that's definitely a big help. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't learn a language to save my life at school, so
Right. Neither could I. That's why I became a language
oh
teacher.
wow, okay, I like
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
brilliant,
So my
brilliant.
mom was a French professor, and so she's always been really good at picking up languages, but
Okay,
I took it because I love the language, I love talking, but I was never any good at it. And
yeah.
I struggled with it, maybe like C's and B's or whatever. And I ended up getting a degree in it just probably because my parents were like, we're done paying for your college. You're getting a degree in French. You have enough courses, get your
Yeah.
degree. And then, the thing is that when I went back to be a teacher, I said, okay, this is how I'm going to do it differently. I'm
Hmm.
going to make sure those kids who struggled really have an opportunity to shine, and that, while I will still celebrate the wins of those who can get it quickly, I will also celebrate the wins of those who are struggling. And
The
so,
underdogs. Yeah.
yeah, it just, and I wanted to make it like relevant too, because,
Mhm.
like, why are we learning the language? It's not because of past
Yeah.
tense and future tense. It's because we want to learn how to communicate with each other
Yeah.
and learn from each other. And
Yeah.
especially now in this global world, right? You're 4 o'clock somewhere and I'm 8 o'clock somewhere,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
having
Absolutely.
this communication. And
Yeah.
so, and I think this is going to kind of represent potentially our learning environments in the
Hmm.
future,
Absolutely.
so
It's the how responsive it is, the fact that we, quite literally set up this meeting so fast, got on it so quick. We were just a bit of context. I noticed that you were in the meeting before, so we gave a quick message. Oh yeah, do you want to jump in now? And it's a matter of seconds.
yeah.
It's incredible. And if, like you say, if that can get incorporated into the learning side of things, I think that's very valuable.
Yeah. And I think that's just it, is like, how do we make it relevant? This is what their future is going to look like.
Hmm.
AI is going to play a role in it. How can we best prepare them for their future?
Hmm.
Which will also, teachers, if you're listening to this and you're like, this lady's crazy, cuckoo doodle, like, it may just require how and what you teach, and the information that you put out there, it's going to look a
Yeah.
little bit different, and because their future is going to look a little different than what we had imagined.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, Marissa, thank you very much for joining me. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So, do you have any sort of closing statements you'd like to say to the audience? Any sort of Twitter handles, or it's not Twitter, it's X. I always forget it every single time. X handles, LinkedIn, anything. Just feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, well, first, I just want to say, if you're out there and you are feeling overwhelmed, you're not alone. I have left the classroom to dedicate my time to this, and I still feel overwhelmed every single day. And I have to just remind myself it's okay to slow down. This frenzy will continue, and you have to learn how to live with it. But that doesn't mean you can't start somewhere to start learning how to do it. And I am available. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Merissa Sadler-Holder on LinkedIn. I run a newsletter for teachers called Teaching with Machines. It's a weekly newsletter, tips, thoughts, opinions, anything. I have a Facebook community called Teaching with Machines, where the community asks questions, coming out. And very soon, I guess I can announce it here. Very soon, I am launching the Teaching with Machines GPT builders for educators
Oh, wow,
Discord
brilliant.
site, where all the teachers can get together, all the educators can get together and build together their own GPT um, little fun things, and something that will, maybe impact education, and we'll learn from each other. So
Brilliant.
stay tuned.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Marissa. It's been great.
Thank you so much.